Okay, hi again. So today we are going to look at text for section A, which is an extract from The Bone Sparrow by Zena Frelund. It is about Subi, who is a 9-year-old boy, and he has lived almost all his life in a camp for refugees. So here we go. Sometimes at night, the dirt outside turns into a beautiful ocean, as red as the sun and as deep as the sky. I lie on my bed and listen to the waves lapping at the tent. Queenie says I'm stupid, saying that kind of stuff, but it's true. She just doesn't see it, is all. Ma sees, though. She can hear the ocean outside, too. You hear it, Nay? I whisper in the dark. In the morning, the ground still wet and foamy from where the waves have washed up. I sit and trace the hundreds of animals that have swum all the way up to the tent, their faces pushing against the flaps, trying to get a look at us inside our beds. Queenie says they aren't real beds, but just old army coats and even older army blankets. Queenie says that a real bed is made with springs and cushions and feathers, and that real blankets don't itch. This morning, I found a shell washed up right along with those animals. I breathed in its smell, all hot and salty fish, like the very bottom of the ocean. And even though Queenie doesn't believe and grunted about when was I ever going to grow up, and could I please quit bothering her all the time, she still gave me her last bit of paper and said I could borrow her pen so I could write the words in black at the top of the page. The night sea with creatures. I drew a picture as best I could with no colors and paper that curled from the damp. Using her pen and paper only cost me my soap, and I'll steal that back from her later anyway. Sisters shouldn't charge their own brothers for paper. I stuck up with Ma, careful not to wake her, because today is one of her tired days. Let's continue. When I whisper that it's just about breakfast time and does she want to come eat, I see her eyes open a bit and a smile start on her lips. Just a little longer, ne? She says, in her English that never sounds right. I not hungry much, Subi, love. Ma's never hungry much. The last time she ate a full meal and didn't just peck at her food was when I was only 19 fans diamonds high. I remember because that was on Queenie's birthday, and Ma always measures us on our birthdays. By now, I am at least 21 or 22 or maybe even 22 and a half high. I haven't been measured in a while. Ma's never hungry much, but I'm always hungry. Eli, he reckons I must be going through a growth spurt. Eli lives in family tent 4 with some other families because his family isn't here. It doesn't matter that Eli's older than me by more than Queenie is. He's my best friend, and we tell each other everything that ever is to tell. Eli says we are more than best friends. We are brothers. I pull out my shell and show it to Eli. Eli, he's the only one I show all my treasures to. Bar sent me another, I say. Eli looks at me with one eyebrow raised. I don't think he's at all sure that it is my bar sending me these treasures while everyone else sleeps. But if anyone could work out how to whisper up the night sea to send a message to the kid he's never met, it would be my bar. Your dad needs to work on his messages because so far, not one of us can make out a word of what he's trying to say. Eli says. I give Eli my shell and he smiles, turning it over and over in his hands. Nice one. Then he sits down in the dirt and pushes it up to his ear. Are you listening to the sound of the sea? I asked. I'm listening to the stories of the sea. Do you want me to tell you what I hear? And now there are at least 10 other kids all gathered round listening to Eli tell. A long way back, when the world was nothing but sea, there lived a whale. The biggest, hugest whale in the ocean. The whale was as old as the universe and as big as this whole country. Every night, the whale would rise to the surface and sing his song to the moon. One night, and all of us sipped Eli's story, wriggling its way so deep into our brains that it can't ever fall out. Okay, here comes the final part. Later, I let Queenie have a listen to my shell. What am I listening to? She says. The only thing I can hear is air swishing about. That's the sound of the sea, I tell her. She just looks back at me. Psst. The sea sounds nothing like that. Okay, there we go. So that's the whole text that we did 2 weeks ago. And today we're going to look at the writing. Well, I'm going to show it here first. Wait, hold on a minute. All right, so I'm going to put it right up here. All right, so let's look at the question. So in the exam, you are advised to spend about 30 minutes on this section because this is section B and there are other questions you need to attempt in section A. So time is really precious. Now, Eli started to tell the story to the children in the camp about a whale. So what you're going to do is you need to imagine that a magazine for young children has invited you to write the rest of the story. So you are going to write the rest of the story. Now, what are you going to write about? Let's look at the bullet points. So the first one says, what happens on this night that makes it different? So this night can be the night where Eli is telling the story about the whale. Now, notice that he hasn't finished yet. He was just saying one night, and then the writer trails it off there. So this is a good starting point where you can pick up the story. Now, what makes it different on this night? So I say a very effective way to make it different is that Queenie takes over the story. Okay, she takes over the storytelling from Eli, and then she starts spinning the yarn longer and longer, so real that the children, okay, or everyone who is listening enjoys it really much. All right, the second bullet point. What other character or characters to introduce? Okay, I'm going to keep this secret so that when I model the narrative writing here for you, you will be able to see it for yourself. And finally, how to finish the story. Now, we all know that story ending can be good, can be a happy ending. It could be a tragic ending. It could be a cliffhanger, which means we leave it for the reader to guess. Okay, so what kind of story ending have I planned for today? Now it's for you to read. Okay, so I'm going to save time now. Of course, in the exam, there is space for your plan, but we will look at that later. Okay, so I'm just going to talk here, saying that we will look at this later, okay, after I have modeled the narrative story. All right. Okay, go back to black. So here we go. I'm going to have this sample narrative story according to what the question wants. Okay, I think I'm going to have this bigger. Okay, so here we go. Now, yeah, just to remind you where to pick up the story. Okay, here it is. So this is what happens in the text. Well, I'm going to put it here. All right, so everyone here can see this is what Eli is saying, isn't it? So Eli was saying that when the world was nothing but sea, so there's water everywhere, and there lived a whale. Now, this is no ordinary whale. It is the biggest, the hugest whale in the ocean. Now, the whale was as old as the universe. So it is ancient. And it is as big as this whole country. This whole country refers to the land, okay, or the country where Subi, Queenie, Ma, and Eli live in. This is where their refugee camp is. So according to Eli, not only is the whale ancient, okay, but it is also massive, enormous. So every night, the whale would rise to the surface and sing his song to the moon. So we can actually continue from one night. Okay, so we pretend that Eli is telling the story. So we can go on like this. So we pick it up from here. One night, the whale spotted, and then, okay, so we can continue from one night a little longer, all right? We can continue it in such a way. And then we close it with a speech mark. So this shows that Eli is saying this. Then we skip a line, signifying another paragraph. So what we can include here would be, all right, hold on. I'm just going to put all these on one page. Yep, so it's easier to see. Okay. So there we go. Skip a line. Now, the next paragraph here, we can describe Eli's voice, the way he is telling the story, and the listeners around him. What are they doing? So we can say Eli's voice wove its way through the stillness of the tent. So we have a verb here. I'm going to color it red. So every time when you see a red word, it means the main verb in the sentence or in the phrase. So Eli's voice wove its way through the stillness of the tent. Now, this is a powerful verb. It creates imagery, all right, appealing to the reader's visual senses. So we can see that Eli's voice, as if it has a life of its own, it could actually twist and turn and swirl about the listeners, okay, getting their attention. So, wove its way through the stillness of the tent. We can provide more description about his voice. It's low and smooth. It's like a lullaby. It's like when you first sing a lullaby. It's like, So we describe Eli's voice like this. It is low and smooth. So this way, we appeal to the reader's senses. All right? So low and smooth like the first hum of a lullaby. And what do we have here? Exactly, that's a simile. So we use simile to make our narrative story interesting. Next, we describe the listeners. So what are the boys doing, the listeners? Remember in the story earlier, in the text, it says there are at least 10 listeners now gathering round, waiting eagerly to hear Eli's story. So now we can describe them. The boys sat huddled around the flickering flame of a makeshift lantern. Now we go on. Shadows dancing across the canvas walls. You know what canvas is? It's a type of material. Wait, let me show you. The canvas tent. You know, they live in a refugee camp. So this is what it's like. Okay, the canvas tent. Well, I'm just going to copy the image and put it here. Maybe I'll just put it up here so that you can see. Okay. So you can imagine the boys are sitting probably outside the tent, okay? And when there is this makeshift lantern with flame burning inside, so the light given out from the lantern, okay, cast shadows against the tent, which is made of canvas material. So because the flame is flickering, the flame will never stay still like this, but it flickers. It's just like it's dancing. So because it moves so much, the shadows, all right, cast against the walls of the tent, they too are like dancing. So that's very descriptive. Here we go. Next one. We shift our attention to Subi, the main character. So very eager, very excited to listen to Eli's story. Subi leaned in. Okay, so he moved closer to Eli. So leaned here is the main verb. There we go. a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Now, this describes Subi smiling broadly. Okay, so instead of saying smile broadly, we can make it more interesting and descriptive at the same time. So we can say a grin, which is a broad smile, a big smile. Tugging, that means pulling his mouth, okay, the corner of his mouth, so that it lengthens. Yeah. So a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Then we can use a dash line. Okay. So here we provide some explanation to why Subi is so excited. So after the dash line, here comes the explanation. So he laughed when Eli told stories, even though Eli always claimed he was the sidekick to Subi's imagination. Okay, let's look at this word sidekick. Do you know what it means? Sidekick. All right. Let's look up the meaning. Sidekick, and then you can just type meaning. Okay. What is sidekick? Kick someone at the side? No. Now, sidekick is actually a person's assistant or close associate. That's what it means. Okay, let's look up Cambridge Dictionary, what it says about sidekick. So it is a person who works with someone who is more important than they are. That's a sidekick. So from here, we can safely say that Eli always claimed, Eli always emphasized, okay, he was the sidekick to Subi's imagination. That means he is playing along with Subi's imagination. All right, so he actually tells the stories based upon Subi's thoughts, his imagination. So he is like Subi's companion, Subi's assistant. So there we go. Next. Now remember, earlier, we leave the story like this. One night, the whale spotted a... Okay, so it's time to continue from there. So we can say, okay, so we are going to create a little bit of suspense here. So we can say in the next paragraph, but just as Eli paused to gather the next line of his tale, a sharp voice cut through the circle. What does it mean by circle here? That's right. The listeners, right? The listeners. So the reader, when they read up to this part, they would be wondering like, who is that? And what does that voice say? So in the next paragraph, we are going to use direct speech, okay, to quote the actual words spoken by that person. So here we go. No, no. You are doing it all wrong, said the voice. Now, in the next paragraph, we can focus on one of the listeners' reaction when they heard this. So who should it be? Exactly, Subi. So Subi did this. Yeah, he turned his head back very quickly. So we can say Subi whipped his head around. Now, which one is the powerful verb here? Whipped. Now, whipped is powerful. Okay, it appeals to the senses because the reader could visualize this, the reader could see this very clearly. Just turn his head round. Okay, it shows speed. Okay, and it shows Subi is really turning with force. All right, that shows surprise as well. So there we go. Subi whipped his head around. Now we can introduce finally who that person is. So we can say, there she was. Who? Queenie. Yes, his sister, who is always teasing him, yeah, shoving him away, not believing in his imagination. And we can say his sister. So you can see we use short sentences here for pace, okay, for quick pace. We want to move the story along, and we also want to show surprise. Now, how is Queenie standing? Okay, or what is her posture at that moment? Is she standing? Is she sitting? Okay, is she walking? So we want to describe her posture, how she looks at that moment when she says this. No, you are doing it all wrong. So we can say that her hands were on her hips. So hands on hips. Now let's see how this looks. Okay, so if this is Queenie, this is how, this is how she is standing. Okay, let's look at this. Hands on hips. Another way of saying this is standing akimbo. So let's look at this picture. You see, this is the phrase that I typed in. Let's look at this. What does it mean? Yeah, that's how you use the phrase. Okay, so standing with arms akimbo means having hands on the hips and elbows bent outwards, projecting from the body. So this is what it means. Standing with arms akimbo. Yep. So obviously you can also use this, which means if you do not want to use hands on hips, you can say arms akimbo. Which one do you prefer? It's up to you. Or you can even say standing with arms akimbo. So let's change it to standing with her arms akimbo. All right. I think that's really good because you learn new vocabulary and how to use it. Yep. So I'm just going to put it here, trim it a little so that it doesn't take up so much space. All right. So there we go. There she was, Queenie, his sister, standing with her arms akimbo. What about her facial expression? Focus on that too. So you can say, a smirk playing on her lips, like she knew something no one else did. Okay. What is a smirk? Let's take a look at the expression. A smirk. All right, so you can imagine if this is Queenie, that's a smirk. Or I think the boy's expression is more like a smirk, okay? Now, do you think this smirk, okay, is friendly? I mean, would you like someone who is smirking at you? What do you think? Do you like someone who is smirking at you? All right, no. Okay, why not? Because smirk, okay. All right, let's look at what Cambridge Dictionary has to say. So a smirk is actually a smile that expresses satisfaction or pleasure about having done something or knowing something that is not known by someone else. Okay, so this coincide with like she knew something no one else did. All right, so we can imagine Queenie, she cuts in, she interrupts, okay, and then her hands are akimbo, all right, and she has got this way of smiling as if she is sending the message that I know something better than all of you do. Okay, so she's like very happy, very satisfied with whatever she has in mind. So that is a smirk. Okay, so there we go. That's one paragraph. Can follow? All right. Now, let's move on to the next paragraph. So we move back to Subi's reaction. Okay, so we say Subi blinked, stunned. So we have two verbs here. So he was like surprised, shocked at Queenie's sudden appearance. So we can show what Subi is thinking in his mind using quotation marks. So, Queenie. Yeah. See, this is how we show Subi's shock. Seeing his sister standing there, her arms akimbo, yeah, and with this smirk on her face. Let's look at it. Subi blinked, stunned. In his mind, Queenie? The same Queenie who'd spent years rolling her eyes at his stories of sea waves whispering through fences, who had called his shell collection garbage from the ground. Yeah. So through these expressions, we show Subi's, yes, shock. Yeah. I'm just going to string this a little bit so that it can accommodate the next part. So we can shift the focus to what Queenie is doing right now. Okay, when all these thoughts, okay, are running wild in Subi's mind. So Queenie, she was now stepping forward, like she belonged in the center of it all. So now Queenie is right in the middle of the circle. Okay, and she's going to take over Eli's story. Okay, we're going to take a short break for now. We'll come back in 2 minutes time. Yes, only 2 minutes. So I'll see you at 5:56 p.m. Okay. Hi, welcome back. So now we are going to continue with the story. Okay, is everyone back? Here we go. Now we can let the reader know what would Queenie do next. All right. So we can show this by using direct speech, showing the exact words Queenie said. So this is what she says. Let me tell this one. She announced. Okay, that means she said in a very decisive manner, okay, in an authoritative voice. Yes, she announced. And followed by properly. So you can imagine the way she says it. Let me tell this one properly. Then in the next paragraph, we can describe what the listener's reactions are. So we can say, so we have the main verbs here. The group, that means the children, the listeners, shifted, they move a bit, murmured, they are talking among themselves like, oh my God, is she going to say the story? Is she going to tell us a story now? Is she going to take over from Eli? Then everyone settles down. So again, we can shift the attention back to Subi. How does he feel at that moment when his sister Queenie is going to tell the story? So we can have this. Subi's heart thudded in his chest. Now, thudded is a good word to use. Do you know why? Why is it a good word to use? Because it is a powerful verb. Yes, and it's also a sound word. Onomatopoeia, right? So the reader could hear his heart going tada, 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 loudly and quickly. So Subi's heart thudded in his chest. His eyebrows shot up, so he's like quizzical. Unbelievable. Okay? His emotions, like he couldn't believe that Queenie is going to tell the story now. So his eyebrows shot up. That's a quizzical look, isn't it? Like he's not sure. Is his sister really going to tell the story? Then we describe further. His mouth hung open slightly. You know, when you are surprised, when you are shocked, your mouth is a little open, isn't it? So it's like, right? So his mouth hung open slightly. Then we go on. Now, with this description, it emphasizes the shock, okay, Subi is experiencing, all right, as if he couldn't breathe, all right. He felt like the air had been knocked out of him. So there isn't any more air in his lungs, like he couldn't breathe. So he looked at Eli, who only shrugged, okay, amused. Even Eli thinks that, oh, okay, fine. Queenie is going to take over from me. Right. So he's waiting to, all right, to see or to hear what Queenie is about to say. Okay, let me shrink the word size here. Right. So here we go. Of course, now the center of focus would be on Queenie. There we go. Queenie's eyes glinted in the half light, sucking in the deep breath. She spoke. Now we want to portray Queenie as a fantastic, amazing storyteller, as if when she speaks, Queenie transforms into a magician. Her voice was slower, softer, and strangely hypnotic. So, what is hypnotic? If something is hypnotic, it draws your attention in. Yeah, it grabs all your attention. So you only focus on the person. So you can imagine the circle of listeners, their eyes all trained on Queenie. Yes, they are all quiet. They are all listening intently. So that is hypnotic. It's really attractive. Like you cannot control yourself. Yeah. Now, this is what she says. So this is how she begins. We were standing on the edge of the desert, but not this desert, not this horrible refugee camp. There we go on. Her hands move as she spoke, like she's painting pictures in the air. There we go on. This one, that means another desert, not the one where their refugee camp is. So this one. Oh, this one had sand that shimmered like crushed pearls and wind that carried the scent of the salt. So she's a really, really skillful storyteller, yeah? Look at the words that she used. So the sand in this particular desert, they shine like pearls crushed. You know, pearls are shiny, right? See, pearls are shiny. So this particular desert, okay, the sand is so shiny, it resembles crushed pearls, like powder. Yeah, it's like pearls crushed into powder. So it's shiny, yes, glimmering. And then the winds there carried the scent of salt. Why? Yes, because she is trying to create the atmosphere of being in the ocean or at the seaside. Okay? Then she go on. We waited. And then in the distance, a ship appeared. So we bring in their father, Subi and Queenie's father. She imagines their father has a ship. So there, they are all waiting in this desert, and in the distance, somewhere further away, they saw a ship. And it's their father's ship. Now shift the focus to Subi. What is his reaction hearing this? Now Subi was very still. He didn't dare move. Okay? His breath came shallow. That shows he is very excited, okay, about the story because he hears the word our past ship. Remember, in the introduction of the text, Subi has lived almost his entire life in the refugee camp. And further down in the text, it says he has never met his father before. So hearing Queenie's words, all right, he was like waiting, yeah, almost painfully for what his sister is about to say. about their father. So he was staring at Queenie, all right? His gaze locked on Queenie. As if there was this string tying Subi, okay, to his sisters. All right. So his gaze locked on Queenie as if he were tethered to her words, as if Queenie's words, yeah, are like ropes, harnesses that coil round Subi's body. So magical. Yep. Now we continue with Queenie's story. Behind Pa's ship, Queenie continued, her voice dipping low. Whales were swimming. Huge, silent creatures. So see how she describes the whales? So whales were swimming, huge, silent creatures that rode through the waves like shadows of the moon. Their songs filled the air. You could feel it in your chest. Like your heart had grown flippers. Yeah, like your heart has got these flippers. What are flippers? These are flippers. Yes, they are special shoes that help you to swim in the water. Yes, fish has got flippers. Look, these are the flippers. Let's look at whale flippers. See, these are whales flippers that help them move. Yeah, change direction as they swim. So, Queenie was saying their songs filled the air the way the whales are singing. You could feel it in your chest, like your heart had grown flippers. Let's go on. Now, shift your attention back to the listeners. How do they feel when they hear this? So everyone, trembled because of excitement, because of so real the way Queenie describes the whales. Yeah. So a collective shiver moved through the listeners. Everyone was sort of like trembled, yeah, at the story. Yeah. Subi's eyes were wide. Now we move it to Queenie again. See? Then Queenie whispered, just when we thought we were safe. Now, mischievously, she paused. Yeah? Queenie intentionally stopped her story. The silence was delicious. So, because everyone was so intent, yeah, listening to her story, no one say anything. Yeah, everyone was quiet, waiting. And Queenie obviously, clearly enjoys this moment of silence, seeing everyone's eyes on her, waiting eagerly, yeah, waiting in anticipation to what is going to happen. Because Queenie just whispered, then, just when we thought we were safe, she paused. The silence was delicious. So that shows Queenie is enjoying this. Right? Then she continues. Next paragraph. So Queenie continues with the story. A darkness rose from below. And when she says that, she, yes, intentionally curled her fingers like tendrils. What are tendrils? I'm sure you have seen this before. Okay, these are tendrils. All right. It's the vine of a plant that can coil, curl round, yes, the branch, okay, as it grows. So it's curly. Look at this. Yeah, it's curly. See? So we describe the way Queenie curls her fingers. When she says, a darkness rose from below. Now, she goes on. Tentacles. Tentacles, you know? Tentacles. Yes. The long arms of an octopus. So tentacles. Thick. Muscular. Dripping. It's like there's water dripping down. Yes? Then she goes on. An octopus. The size of a house. Pulled itself from the depths. So coming out from the deepest part of the ocean. Then she goes on. It reached up and snatched. Ha! She exclaimed. My goodness. What's happening? Yes, this is a problem, right? This is the suspense. A darkness rose from below. What is this darkness? That's right, an octopus. The tentacles, you can see them first. The tentacles are thick, muscular, dripping with water. And this octopus is the size of a house. It pulled itself from the depths. It reached up and snatched Pa. It grabbed Pa away. So, what happened? The listeners' reaction. So there were gasps like, yeah. And of course, we must talk about Subi. Yes, Subi flinched. He's like, oh my God. Yes, he flinched. So he moved quickly, yeah, like hiding himself from this horrible part of the story. But before anyone could speak, Queenie goes on. But wait. She hissed quickly. Before that happened, yep, before it got too close, what happened? We fell. That's what Queenie says. They fell. Why? Not finished yet. She goes on with the story. The desert began to twist beneath our feet. And then round and round, the sand spun, yeah? Swirling very quickly, turning round and round. Faster than a cyclone. You know what's a cyclone? Yes? Here's the cyclone. It's like a tornado. So you can see this picture very clearly. So the sun spinning round, very quick. Yeah, faster than a cyclone. Turn from gold to brown to black. And suddenly the sand, at first it's gold in color. Then it becomes brown. Then it becomes black. Then suddenly, what happened? What did Queenie do next? She clapped her hands like this. Yeah. As soon as she says, then suddenly she clapped her hands. Then she goes on. Whoosh. That's onomatopoeia, a sound word. We are sucked through the sand like water down a drain. Now shift your focus to the listener's attention. All right. The atmosphere. Yeah, how does it feel? Okay, we want to show the listener's response. The atmosphere, chill. Better still, the atmosphere froze. All right. Or we can say the air, all right, the air froze in the camp. So it's like everything stops moving. Okay, the air froze in the camp. Subi's pulse thundered in his ears. That means his heart was beating so loudly, he felt like, yeah, his heart was in his ears. So loud. Pulse means heartbeat, right? Subi's pulse thundered in his ear. Now we move on. Queenie continued. And then, spoosh, that's another sound word. She mimed bursting through the surface. Mime means she pretended, yeah, she made the action, pretended that something shot up to the surface. Then she go on. We came up, not in the desert, but in the middle of a vast cerulean ocean. So in the big bluish green sea or big blue sea. I could feel the salt on my tongue. Queenie continues. Sharks swam in circles. Their eyes cold and ancient. So we describe the sharks swimming around all of them. Yep, that's what Queenie says. But before these predators reached us, before the sharks, reach us, something enormous rose beneath us. Something came up. Yeah. What is that? A gigantic turtle. So old, yeah. Its shell was covered in moss and coral. And it spoke to Pa. So the ancient gigantic turtle spoke to Pa. Now shift the attention back to the listeners. So the group hung on every word. That means all the listeners were, listening intently to every single word Queenie said or Queenie was saying. They're listening. All right. Now we continue. Next paragraph. And then at last, Pa's ship. He threw us a rope, pulled us up, and said, I've been waiting for you lot That means the father has been waiting for every one of them. Yes? Then she continues. And that's where it ends. That's what Queenie said. The story finishes here. Now, what happens? Surely some of them would ask this question, what about the Octopus? Yeah? Remember earlier, Queenie was just saying there was these tentacles, right? So someone asked this, but what about the Octopus? Someone asked. Guess what Queenie would say? Or did she say anything? Queenie's smile widened. So Queenie smiles and she said, that is for another night. Okay, so that's where the story ends. How do you like that? Okay, we're going to take a short break. All right. Then when we come back, we will look at the analysis to this story. Okay, we are going to take a slightly longer break. I will see you at 6:35 p.m. Okay. So here we go. See you in a bit.